Greetings, everyone, from Phoenix, Arizona, and welcome to our program on overcoming barriers to collaboration. And we're really happy today to introduce all of you to some of the work we've been doing in applied improv and mindfulness practices when it comes to negotiation. And I'd like to welcome you all to meet my colleague and friend, Briana Beveridge, who is going to be my guest today. And she is going to introduce us to her work on beautiful balance. Tell us a little bit about your business, and a little bit later, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the programs you have coming up.
Hi, I'm Briana Beveridge from Your Beautiful Balance. I give mindful and meditative solutions for a beautifully balanced life, and I'm so excited for this workshop today.
Thank you so much, Briana, for exploring and experimenting with us in this new format. And I just wanted to also welcome our producer, Shamshad Khan, who is in Northern California and will be working behind the scenes. And if you have any questions for any of us, we'd love to see those in the comment section. And also, I'd also like to welcome everybody from around the globe. Once again, we've got such an amazing showing. And I know that Natalie is here from Zurich, and we have others in Switzerland as well. And we have people all across Europe, including Amsterdam and Germany and Denmark, and all into the Middle East and into India. Several of you are from across India also, so I really appreciate that. And I also just have some comments I've heard from people all over the states as well, all the way from California to DC, Wisconsin and Ohio and Texas. And I am just so grateful and energized that you all would share this experience with us. So let's talk a little bit about what we plan to do here today. And we're going to spend some time taking the world of quantum negotiation and applied improv techniques and mindfulness techniques. And the reason why we talk about applied improv is that's a very action-oriented way to think about learning. So often we just think about learning as a cognitive experience, but a lot of the work we do on applied improv and the work in mindfulness has to do with including mind, body, and spirit into our approach to negotiation. So what we're going to do is look a little bit more at some of the uncertainties and defenses and judgments and anxieties that many of us have in negotiation. And we're going to address for all of you some of the things that have to do with shifting our mindset and looking at ways that we can focus our attention and we can slow down, and that we can really find some of those invisible resources that we have. So many times we talk about in quantum negotiation, how do we prepare to be more anchored for the best negotiation results? So that's what we're going to focus on today with Briana's help and some of the work she does with her practices. So before we begin, I just wanted to remind everybody here that when I talk about negotiation, I'm really looking at anytime you're problem solving with someone, anytime that you're creating something new, and anytime that you're sharing limited resources, you use negotiation and collaboration, communication as a means to get what you need from others. So a lot of what we're looking at today is how can we use this work in negotiation to really anchor ourselves. So many of you know that in quantum negotiation, we use the metaphor of the anchor, meaning preparation that we would all do. So when we look at that anchor and we think about ourselves as a buoy in very disruptive waters, all of the work that's gone on, all of the tension we have going on in the world today, we think about how can we be anchored? How can we become more creative in our behavior and our style, like a buoy in a turbulent world? And we think of creativity and anchoring as one of the very best techniques of a vaccine in the world of the COVID disruption and pandemic. So I'd like to turn this over to Briana and give us a little insight about practices that we can use in such a disruptive time.
Hi. For me, mindfulness coupled with improv and quantum negotiation is literally the perfect fit. Mindfulness with applied improv and negotiation are skills that have to develop. So just as Karen mentioned, having the pre meditation or mindfulness moment before you even move into a negotiation. And again, this can be with family or business, whichever one. Being sure to have the grounding before you even begin to have a negotiation. What is it that you would like in the negotiation? What is it that would make both people happy? And to what are inquiring questions? Being mindful enough to know those inquiring questions so that the service that you are giving is met with conversation, collaboration, and the practices include the 3C solution: remain calm, cool, and collected instead of consumed, compulsive, and in chaos. Because when we're trying to get all that we want, we miss the opportunity to be able to have an exchange, a collaboration that grows you instead of makes you smaller. And there's breathing techniques that you can do at just for 30 seconds, even before a video call, even before a phone call. Just take the time to get centered within yourself. Use that mindfulness of being present and have an intention that both of you can win. It's not I better get what I need, before they are trying to do their thing. It's, no, how can we meet together? What is the best outcome for both of us? Let me ask those questions. And even in uncomfortable situations. And just a learning outcome is it develops clarity in problem solving. Just real clarity in problem solving. It increases your willingness to collaborate. All of negotiation is a collaboration, whether it's with your children, whether it's with your boss, whether it's with your customer. It's all about negotiation, and just increasing your willingness and going from scarcity to abundance is crucial, because we're taught in negotiation, how do I dominate? And quantum negotiation with mindfulness is, how do we both make the situation better? So I'm excited to do our role play. To set up the background, this is with Kim and Rebecca. Rebecca has a thriving coaching business. She teaches people how to grow their dream. Her client, Kim, started working with Rebecca when she had the budding of a dream 5 years ago. They have developed a great relationship. Kim started her business because of the work she was able to do with Rebecca's coaching. Kim worked as a fashion buyer for a major retailer. She loved her job, but knew there was something else for her. That's when she decided to work with Coach Rebecca. In the past 5 years, Kim has grown her idea into a thriving specialty boutique in a downtown area. She has worked hard in the past 5 years and has a staff. Coach Rebecca and Kim experienced a hiccup in their recent business transaction. A project they both agreed on did not come to pass. Coach Rebecca decided to mindfully review the entire exchange so she could see where the mindful gaps appeared. Okay, so we're going to change into our characters. Okay. Rebecca makes a visit to Kim's boutique to catch up. After 5 years of working together, they have an easy rapport. After pleasantries, they sit a while and talk.
I have this really great team idea I'd like to talk to you about, Rebecca. I really need to bring them all together they're all individuals, all separate, and I really want them to aspire to grow, and I really want to hear their visions. And my store is a second job for most of them. So I need to get a little more cohesion with this group.
I have a great product for your team. It will develop their personal vision and how your uniqueness empowers and broadens the team.
Great. Well, let's set this up then for June 5th. Will that work on your calendar?
That's perfect.
How much would that be and how long would it take?
It will take about 4 hours, and I will charge you my discounted rate of $250 per person. Let me know how many will be attending. I will need 50% 2 weeks before the workshop starts, and the final payment is due on the day of the workshop. Does that work for you?
That works perfectly. Thanks so much for the discount. I'm really excited to really get started.
In the meantime, Rebecca sends an invoice that clearly states 50% deposit 2 weeks before the workshop begins. When the deposit does not arrive 12 days before the workshop, Rebecca gives Kim a call to check in. Oh, I should use my phone. Hey, Kim, I haven't heard from you. Are you still planning on having the workshop? I didn't receive the deposit.
Oh, but I have COVID right now. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I've been out of it.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to hear that. How are you feeling now?
Well, I'm getting a little better, but sorry I didn't send the deposit. It's been hard trying to run the shop and to get well, and I have a few employees that are getting COVID as well, and I'm working from home.
Ooh, that's a lot. Would you like to postpone the workshop?
No, not at all. I should be better soon. Is it okay if we just talk later?
Of course. Give me a call when you feel better.
Okay, I'll get back to you, but we're still on. And how do I pay you?
You can send your payment through the invoice that I sent to you via PayPal.
Great. Thank you.
In the meantime, COVID has spiked in their area, and Coach Rebecca no longer feels comfortable having an in-person team build. It's 1 week before the team build, and Rebecca has not heard from Kim, nor has Kim sent the promised 50%. Coach Rebecca gives Kim a call. Hey, Kim, how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling much better. I'm excited to get on with this workshop because I've already got 13 people confirmed.
That's great. However, I do have an update for you. Due to the spike in COVID cases in our area, I need to move the workshop to an online platform. We can still have the same date. We can still have the same workshop. It'll just be, and I'm still going to supply all the supplies that any team member will need, but I'm going to have to take it to online. And this type of workshop easily moves to online. How does that sound?
I don't know. This COVID thing isn't that bad. We could meet in person. I just got everybody to agree and to commit in person to this team build here at the shop. So I really don't want to back out. So let me get back to you.
Okay. I know it's a lot to consider. So what happens is 3 days before the scheduled workshop and still no deposit or update, Coach Rebecca leaves Kim a voicemail. Hey, Kim, I wanted to check in. What did you decide to do for your staff? Let me know if we need to reschedule.
Now, Kim texts Rebecca, I'm going to have to cancel for now. I needed to do something on that day because of all my scheduling. I will keep you posted because I'd really love to do the team build with you at some point.
1 month later, Rebecca decides to give Kim a text. Hey, Kim, I wanted to check in. What did you decide to do for your staff?
Well, I'm going to text her back. Hi, Coach Rebecca. I think that last retreat we did last year went really well. So I'm probably not going to do another retreat again like this until next year.
So happy to hear. Let me know if I can be of service in another way. Have a great day, Kim. And so their negotiation ends. And so just some mindful reflection after what Rebecca had to do was just go, okay, what happened here? How come the communication gap was there? How come the what happened? Because Rebecca left empty and a little bit angry and confused. And she could also tell that Kim felt the same way. But after she sent the text, Rebecca was hugely disappointed and frustrated that she was so vague and avoidant and asking for clarity on what they both really needed. Did not use her mindful negotiation, quantum negotiation skills.
And as Kim, she noticed that in this communication, this negotiation with Rebecca, who is a friend and a colleague, she just wasn't sure what Rebecca needed. And although Kim knew she really wanted this team build and she wanted that date, then with being sick and then the venue change, she was just so confused. So she just went on and made other plans. So she just wanted to avoid this situation completely.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about debriefing on this. And we had wanted you all to think of some questions in terms of, was there ever a time when you felt like Kim or Rebecca? And we'd like to see that in your comments. Was there ever a time you felt like Rebecca or Kim? And when was that? So one of the things that both Briana and I noticed, as this is a very classic case we hear with many of our colleagues and our clients, and we often see that some of the fundamental ground rules from improv, for example, one of them is before you even begin, as Briana has been mentioning, to remember, even in the most casual of conversations, how can we remember to just honor our own needs and honor all of our basic human needs? And also, how can we be supportive to ourselves to be more clear, which can help us then with that intention when we start to meet with our counterpart. So one of the basic ground rules of improv then is this kind of anchoring with an intention that we honor and support each other and clarify as we go along, because there is so much disruption today. It takes even more clarity and more mindfulness, as Briana is going to talk to us about, to really problem solve under so much change and disruption. And even our different opinions about COVID, for example, and the kind of safety measures that we should be using. So how can we be more creative together under such disruptive times?
So go ahead and answer whatever you think, or if you've come up against a client or family member or whatever situation that you have questioned, like, could I have done that better? What happened? How did it go for so long? And what is a good solution? When Karen and I mention applied improv, it's not trying to be funny or anything. It's trying to be present in the moment to be able to answer a question. And if you do a mindful practice before and keep the principles of mindfulness and applied improv with negotiation, quantum negotiation, it really draws you into being present and able to listen to that invisible voice or that invisible help that you have. Just being present in the moment. When you are not present and you're trying to either please or angry or confused, you usually don't get the collaboration and you don't get out of the chaos, because it's bringing in so much other things, like Rebecca wasn't paid and was okay with that because she thought she was with her friend And it was a colleague and a friend. And what she needed to do was to really say, hey, you know, I haven't had the deposit, so I'm going to have to cancel, you know, still have that relationship with that client, but, you know, keeping her own boundaries instead of trying to please. So honoring and supporting the moment means using your mindfulness tools, using the quantum negotiation in the moment. You can have the intention, but the improv comes in where you hear something, that invisible awkwardness, that invisible thing, and you get to ask about it. That's the most empowering thing. You get to ask, is this uncomfortable for you? Because it feels uncomfortable for me. You get to do these things. And what I noticed in this exchange was the unrecognized avoidance. They were both kind of avoiding each other, you know, because of their different views on COVID, because, you know, they just couldn't come to a meeting of the minds. Well, once the avoidance started, it just got larger. It did not shrink down because, you know, the coach did not really say, hey, I'm confused as to what to do now. What do you think? How should we go forward? Because I usually cancel and, you know, I haven't gotten deposit, but I don't get it from today, I'm going to have to cancel completely. And there was a conclusion met, and both of them could meet that, right? So if she had 12 days, she could have just canceled and gone to another job. So, and which wouldn't have been so confusing and almost to the point of begging. So, trying to get all my notes here. Yeah, the unrecognized avoidance is what causes chaos, is what takes you from being calm in a collaborative negotiation to being anxious in a collaborative negotiation. And I have that slide of mindful negotiation tools. And it's, can you put that up, Jamshad? It's to be visible. Oh, can you make that bigger than me? Because you can't. Be visible and go. Oh, it's the other slide. Perfect. Be visible and shift from scarcity. Scarcity is confusion and all that, to abundance. Confirm optimism over fear. Rebecca was afraid to really say like, oh, I should cancel that. You know, the optimism is like, you know what, I have a policy. So let's just go ahead and talk about that. Be mindful of physical energy. What are you actually feeling in that moment? Both of them divorced themselves of what they were actually feeling to talk about it. And believe in the invisible. There are things you hear in a negotiation that can calmly be questioned in a kind and thoughtful way. And when you are flexible instead of being right, you know, Rebecca was calling Kim like, hey, you know, it's been this many days, instead of having a solution. And because Rebecca was kind of trying to be right, and so was Kim. So, but when you're flexible, you can get what you need. So we would love, I mean, how are you, Karen, with taking questions?
There's a couple of great comments there. And I just wanted to point out that in this client situation that Rebecca did get this anchoring, and she felt very ready to be able to go back and to engage with Kim. Do you want to say anything about that before we look at the comments? We got some great comments from Shidden and Natalie here.
Yes. The next slide is, upon mindful reflection, the greater mission for Rebecca is to be of service, right? The greater mission for all of us is to be, how are we of service in any negotiation? And if Kim continues with the project or not, Rebecca is still, her business is to be of service. So it doesn't, like, the relationship with Kim won't make or break her business. The relationship with Kim, though, has, upon reflection, was, you know what, I need to make myself broader. I made Rebecca made herself very small. And Rebecca also felt comfortable to bring mindful negotiations to help connect and grow, so that both parties could. That's what she could have offered, that kind of mindful quantum negotiation. And also recognized that she didn't pause very much. She just was like, keep a conversation going because I want what I want. There was opportunity for her to pause and just see what she was feeling, to check in. And also she realized that she needed more compassion and has much more clarity right now about mindfulness, mindful negotiation. So Rebecca is now ready to begin a new conversation with Kim with an open mind without avoidance. So we'd love to hear your questions. I'm seeing a lot of great questions actually right now.
Good. And Shannon points out that in leadership situations, when as a board member, for instance, you're trying to bring an initiative or a perspective to the attention of the entire board, kind of sometimes a lack of response at a personal interaction level or during the meeting. And I think what you're pointing out here, Shannon, is that many times when we're volunteering for something, that there's a lot of avoidance that goes on. And I would just say, and I've talked to many of you about this, that in many ways that turns out to be, we often avoid because we think we don't have any power or leverage. When you're volunteering or with your friend or with someone that you think they have more leverage than you do, we tend to avoid. A buyer sometimes thinks the seller has more leverage, and the provider thinks that the buyer has more leverage. So a lot of it has a lot to do with the sense of not having leverage, and anchoring is everything to find that leverage that you have, because you have a lot of resources, you have a lot you need, and that you can offer a lot to the other. So that's comment I'd like to make on that. Briana, your take on Shannon's comment about volunteer leadership.
I love that, because I have been on boards where that silent thing happens and then you get a dominant and then everybody just follows suit. They are resentful during that
Right.
following suit, but they just go along, and that the confusion builds, it does not lessen. And kind of to go with Natalie's question, how do you overcome the discomfort of addressing the inconvenience in a positive way? Both of those together, because it is an inconvenience to be on that board when it's opinion heavy instead of solution heavy. And a lot of people think, well, I'll just get off the board. They just separate themselves immediately. And being the overcoming that kind of confusion technique is really consider, what is it that you want in this situation? Do you want to highlight a certain program? What do you really want in that situation, on that board or in that meeting? And you get to have a voice. A lot of times people think that mindfulness means not to say anything and just reflect on yourself. No, you actually get to negotiate. You get to say, hey, I have a question about, and can we try this? And then you open up the exchange for everybody. Usually it's been my experience that I'm not the only one in the room that feels that way. I am the only one who says something. And then people will come to me after, oh my gosh, I thought the same thing. And I didn't want that gossip after. I wanted participation during.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's going to happen when I speak up in a kind, respectful, and thoughtful, because there are some times where I'm like trying to get my negotiation skills mindfully because I'm upset at what's going on. And how to overcome that is, okay, what's real here? I'm feeling uncomfortable. What's also real here? I do need to speak up. I mean, it's been my experience that most of it is because I'm not speaking up at that board meeting, at that school thing, at that, with any relationship.
So that brings me to Rhonda's comment that she agrees with anchoring is absolutely essential for really honoring our own needs while we are negotiating. And it seems like a simple throw off answer, but we have all seen the power of that. As you've just said, Briana, the more you can anchor into what you really need to say, you do have the voice and the clarity to be able to speak up. And that actually, this is why we talk about it as leadership, ultimately. Any other comments on that for you, Briana, on anchoring?
It's actually why you're in the room. You didn't get to be asked on that board to just stay silent. You didn't get to be a part of whatever meeting or it's always collaboration. I mean, that's the positive that it can bring to it. And I love what Flora said, text messages are often misleading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and don't you think Rebecca might have changed the outcome by calling instead of replying to Kim's text? Absolutely. Absolutely. It would have, it wasn't genuine. It was, let me just avoid some more, it had nothing to do with collaboration. So great point. My computer. We're trying to read all the comments.
Yes. Duama says that during negotiations, we usually try to find common ground to build on. I felt as the common ground in the helpful workshop dissolved, neither party saw to find a common ground to rebuild the negotiation. Excellent insight.
Great.
What would you like to say about that? Because you've seen this, Briana, how it can just, I like the word that you use, the common ground just disintegrated or dissolved.
And the other point too, along with what you're saying, is that Wanma, is that there were so many things that didn't get spoken before then. So many. And, just like in the Rebecca Kim situation, there were so many unspoken things from day 12. It was really at day 14 when she did not receive payment, she didn't call. So that was literally the start, and the vagueness about the COVID in person or not in person. So there's many small avoidances, but that ruined that common ground. Exactly right.
So why do you think, Briana, then that we often avoid these kind of difficult collaborations?
Most of it is, I got so much going on. Why am I here doing this? This is a waste of my time, usually is what instead of what's really going on with me. Do I feel unheard in this meeting? Do I feel Rebecca felt unheard and Kim felt unheard. So, what was really going on there is that they weren't really communicating. And it only takes one person to actively get quiet and get perspective before you walk into anywhere, right? You're walking into that board meeting and, okay, what's going on in me? And just going slower. I mean, there's physical actions that you can take. You literally can just take 3 deep breaths before you get on that call, that video conference, and just go, okay, I'm centered and I'm willing to learn. And how you approach anything. So that, and I love that word common ground. Like, how can I find common ground? And that invisible comes to you. It really does, because you've put that intention out there. You've actually put that intention out there. That it's just the simple little things you can do to tweak that you don't have common ground. There's tiny little things that you can bring back the common ground. A lot of times, though, we just abandon it and, go to anger because it's what we do. So what about you, Karen?
Yeah, I would say again, it goes back to this often wrong feeling that we do not have leverage or that we're going to get taken advantage of. So that's why I believe so strongly in anchoring in our invisible resources. And we all have power. We all have leverage. We all have something to give, and we all can receive from others as well. And I think that has a lot to do with just avoiding is you believe you don't have any leverage or you don't have any value or worth to even offer to that other person.
Yeah, and you forget your agency.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of agency and honoring and supporting others comes from having that kind of grounding and strength and confidence in what you do have to offer and that you do need others to help. And that's why we negotiate. Others can help us accomplish to get what we need when we're problem solving or creating something new.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on Jeffrey's comment.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeffrey. In reflecting, Rebecca seemed to lack necessary awareness that would allow her to be mindful of the COVID set, which really set that buoy in motion for Kim. That is a great insight. Briana, you want to say something about this, the COVID and how our buoys are being disrupted every day?
Right, because of different views. In the end, Kim kind of mentioned, well, it's not that bad. So it was really uncomfortable because that silent, how they feel about COVID, each of one of them was a big player. And you're right, Rebecca wasn't aware. She did not mindfully go into that. She just thought, oh, I can do this project for her. I love doing this project. And I already know her and that. And she didn't go in and say, it's COVID. This is not going to work right now. I can do that an online platform, and completely didn't recognize that she was uncomfortable from the beginning. So that was a part of the mindful, reflective reflective part of it. So thank you. Yeah. She didn't walk in there with mindfulness. She didn't walk in there. She was just thinking about business, and that's what I find with people I work with, that they adapt this mindset that, well, this is how it goes, instead of really agency again of, okay, what's really happening here for me? That's why I'm in this room. That's why I'm in this conversation. What's really going on with me? Which is crucial in any negotiation. What is going on with me? Am I angry? Am I confused? I need to ask a question. How do I show up? How am I a leader? You didn't get to any of those venues you're at by not showing leadership. And I mean,
Right.
Any type of board, a work meeting, a home situation, you didn't get there by accident. You're there to actually lend your voice, to show your leadership skills. It doesn't mean dominate. It means, how can I be a part of?
So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Briana. Go ahead.
I was loving what Wanma said about grounding is tied to our values. Yeah, our emotions are partially grounded in our values. Very true. And Rebecca did not honor them for herself. She didn't honor the value of, like, I can't do in-persons right now. She just said, well, she's going to please the client, and, the client's always right, and that kind of old way to negotiate.
So if we do address and introduce emotions into the conversation, will we risk diving into values and in the discussion, which creates a lot more emotional chaos? I love this question. And yes, let's take more questions from you. We can move and put this into a broader context now. What do you think about that, Briana?
Perfect. If you have a situation that you're confused about, we would love to have that question. We have some time, and we can literally do a deep dive. So, and
So what
broaden it.
happens if you bring in values and emotions into conversation? Do you find that just creates more emotional chaos? It's another reason why people avoid, because it's too hard to manage your own emotions than to manage someone else's. So we're just going to avoid it. What
Right.
is your take on that?
It's the avoidance is a safety. You think it's safety. It's not safety. It is actually that gap that you create, and that you create when you aren't clear about what's going on with you. It doesn't mean you're like, I can't deal with that right now. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is maybe sometimes you stay silent and say, hey, you know what? I need to get back to you. I need to get back to you on that, which is what Rebecca could have done. You know what? Let me think about that. Let me get back to you. And continued the conversation with her at the store just as a friendly, she stopped in just to stop in to see, her boutique, not to like do the sales thing. So pause is literally a wonderful negotiation tool. So you pause when you are just feeling weird. What is that saying about nothing in is emergency? And a lot of times we feel like we have to have the answer right now. We don't need to have the answer. What we need to is like, okay, do I know now? I don't know. I love it when people say, you know what, let me think about that. That's actually leadership.
So what do you think then this is Jeffrey's comment kind of builds on what you're just talking about. When we begin to avoid, does our nature to escalate our commitment to our position come into play? I think this follows on exactly what you are talking about. Say
It
something.
does. Yeah.
Right.
Because it's I'm in my corner. I am right. And I'm going to do everything I can to remain right. And all that right is, the more right I get, the more wrong you get, is avoidance.
That is avoidance. That's a great way to put it. And I like what Flora says here, that probably we avoid so much because you're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings, especially when it's a friend or family member. And in many ways, you actually hurt the friendship in a very bad way. So the relationship was so important to Rebecca to have with Kim, even though they had very different belief systems. They really still did care about each other, and something dissolved in their common ground.
Exactly. And the sad part is that Rebecca and Kim really liked each other. They could have just that day had fun time connecting. And then Rebecca could have said, hey, you know what? Let me get back to you. I'm going to think about that, and I'll call you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
What time works for you? Also clarity is just asking questions about clarity are another. And if you don't ask those questions, that's another avoidance. Well, you said 10. I thought you meant 10:30. How do you just little tiny clarity questions actually help with collaboration?
And another reason why we call this practice quantum negotiation is that when you remember that you are interconnected with Kim, or you're connected with a family member or a team member, when we remember that at the most subatomic level, we are interconnected and that we're not in this alone. We all are sharing in the disruption and the anxiety of the COVID situation. As an example, this is something that we all can feel. I'm so nervous all the time. I'm anxious all the time because what's going on outside of us is making our nervous systems extremely anxious. So that's where your practices come in so well, Briana, in terms of mindfulness keeps us aware, as Natalie says, of the quantum field.
Yes, I love that. The quantum field. Yes, we are all the same. And the truth is, that's a perfect statement. We are all the same in the quantum field, because this whole hierarchy thing is in a boardroom or whatever situation, that's something everybody needs everybody. So, your voice is needed. Your perspective is needed. When you are mindful of that and take the time, you have a meditation practice and that helps you draw into it. You have a mindful practice or a little routine that you do before you begin any meeting. What is that routine for you? How do you find that balance? Finding that out is, the best way to see what your part is. I mean, the mindful reflection that Rebecca did was really to see what happened. Not to blame herself or Kim, because the more right thing, makes her more, I'm more right because, totally avoids what was actually going on. So when she did do that mindful reflection, she saw those gaps. How can you do that in your situation with whatever negotiation you're dealing with, whether it's a 3-year-old or your team member that seems to get on your nerves?
What's so powerful about the practices and the teachings and the guidance you give in meditation and in mindfulness practices, and I know that a lot of our friends who are here today also really share in this commitment, is that why I find it so important in a scientific sense, in a spiritual sense, in a physical sense, is that you really do connect with invisible connections and resources and ideas, as Jeffrey and I always talk about when we are always talking about quantum theory, that just because it's invisible doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And your practice helps us to be more aware of those invisible resources that we all have: physical, mental, spiritual, social. And I just think that's such an important part of the work that you do.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, for me, meditation is what centers me, and I don't need to do this hour long. I mean, I used to do lots of meditation, 10% of my day, all that. And I have developed a guided meditation that helps people do it together so that you're not having to do this alone. Just making that phone call to be a part of a guided meditation, knowing that there's other team members with you, is not only relaxing, but it's like you don't have to do this by yourself. The people I work with are really wanting, they've already taken meditation, they think they know about it, and they blame themselves because they haven't been doing it more frequently. And the classes that I offer really just help you center yourself, and you get the support that you need. And in doing mindful negotiation, getting the support that you need, not gossiping afterwards. Right now, I have a kindness challenge on where nobody can gossip. Really watch where you're gossiping, whether it's about a family member, to a family member, or anywhere. And the practice of meditation really helps center you, so that you can do that short breathing technique or that little routine before you go into these things. Because as you meditate, your awareness starts changing. It helps you bring in presence. It helps you bring in solutions. So you start your day with it, and then the day opens up. Even if your mind is chattering the whole way through, the intention you have was, I need the invisible connection.
Shamshad, could you put up the buoyancy slide for a second? I think this ties in so well with what you just are talking about, Briana. Is this metaphor I just love to use for anchoring on our thinking level, our emotional level, our social level, the physical level, and the spiritual level, that all of us who have to problem solve, all of us who have to share limited resources in this turbulent world, all of this anxiety is hitting our nervous system. And we need to always restore our balance under this kind of turbulence. And one of the things that I often find in negotiation training and preparation at all levels, very young negotiators to very experienced, we tend to prepare mostly on the cognitive level, our mental, our thinking level. We don't think about the emotional level. How do I understand my own emotions, and how can I understand others? How can I manage my own emotions, and how can I manage others? And physically, why would I need to sleep better, eat better, breathe better, bring that down the anxiety level physically before I do a very important exchange with someone? And the other is to always remember, as we were talking about before, Briana, is our spiritual dimension. How do I continue to anchor to meaning? What is giving me meaning and purpose, not just this negotiation, but in general? Why am I being of service? Why do I want to do so well in this kind of situation? So I just wanted to comment on a lot of your work helps you, mindfulness and meditation help not just with how we think better in a negotiation. And let's go to the next side. I thought that your example that you gave was so perfect. This is our anchor. This is the anchor that tells us that in the center is who we are. And you showed that when Rebecca could go from thinking in a scarcity mentality to a positive abundance mentality, she actually prepared and anchored herself in her mental capacity. Emotionally, she went from fear to optimism. In her behavior, she went from being defensive and avoiding to being collaborative and understanding. On the physical realm, she knew she had to take some time to get her balance again physically. And then spiritually, she believed in connection with her friend, and that just because her friend may not go forward in business with her, she still can believe in a larger purpose and a connection with her. Any other comments on that you'd like to kind of wrap up your thinking about those practices for a mindfulness in negotiation?
Mindfulness in negotiation is the most beautiful part of negotiation because you get to honor your voice, you get to honor your, and we keep saying it, agency, and your leadership. I mean, it doesn't matter how you are a leader, it matters that you actually are a leader with whatever you have, with whatever information. It's an equal part to the puzzle. And Jeffrey's asking, Briana, what are your thoughts about awareness, attention, and focus, elements key to meditation? When you practice meditation on a regular basis, all of those grow. You know, a lot of people ask me about, how do I sleep? So when you're not sleeping, you go to work anxious. It prevents you from being mindful, and that cycle continues. When you start a meditation practice, it literally connecting with your breath, connecting with who you are that day, actually broadens you. And even if your mind is all cluttered through it, even if you're like, I don't even know if this is working, you begin to see your attention is broader throughout the day. You get to hear answers to some of the questions that you have. It is like a magnet. When you start meditating, it's a magnet that draws solutions to you, literally. I mean, it has a lot of scientific benefits, but on the spiritual, invisible realm, it really has this attraction because you're getting clear about your needs and your wants. And, I need to provide for my family. So I'm in my meditation, I, probably can get an answer for that. For me, I get a statement. Other people get different things, but everyone gets awareness on whatever level that they participate in.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sharon points out that that daily practice is important. As Brianna and I have talked about this often, that A negotiation means that you have done your daily practice, that you're maintaining your buoyancy, and you can go back into that place of grounding, anchoring, meditation, mindfulness, the beginning of the day, the end of the day, and whenever it works for you. Exactly.
Exactly. I offer a monthly mini so people can see. I do a Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday. And even in that monthly mini, people see results. I had a gentleman who was 80 years old and he was completely against this, but his wife wanted to do it. And he said, after the first one, that breathing thing is really great. This was at the beginning of COVID and they were not getting along. And we did this mindful mini, and with meditating 15 minutes, I give a guided meditation for 15 minutes and then encourage them to start to develop their own practice. And I support twice a week to help ground them to keep going and finding out what works for them. And what happened is that the gentleman who, Gunter, found that, he really wanted to have time to read his spiritual book, time to just relax. And when his partner she found out that she has a beautiful dining room that has a gorgeous view outside. She's moved her office there. And just those little tweaks really calmed her spirit, calmed both of their spirit. So that's what a daily practice can do. And you can get supported while you're doing it. You don't have to do all of this alone.
And I think it's interesting. Mom Shad points out, why do we avoid difficult collaboration? It's almost like a deeper question you're asking here is, why do we avoid going into these practices? Why would we avoid a simple breathing technique? Why would we avoid just slowing down? And to me, that's a very good question. And a lot of it is, without slowing down, you don't even know what you need. So I wanted to just comment here. Sharon points out, and that Briana, what do you recommend to people who say they need to provide for their family, who live in fear and of losing their homes? This level of anxiety is so high right now.
What I've found, the opportunity that COVID has brought is you can either freak out completely, or these are real situations. You're talking about
Right.
a real situation, and still need to pause, because solutions can't come to you with all that anxiety that is forefront. If you don't take the time to meditate and pause, excuse me, then you are adding to the fire. You're adding fuel to the fire. Even if you're going to lose your home, there's still solutions. There's still resources. But you're not going to avail yourself of those if you are just constantly worried and fret and frightened. And it's hard to talk to somebody and say, you know what, if you meditate, it could help you get just oh, there's a resource over here. I'm not the only one losing my home. How can I get this resource over here? And it's invisible and it works.
Right.
Always, always, always.
I'd like to wrap up these comments with something you've said, Juanma. In my opinion, mindfulness during negotiation helps us disengage and keep a check-in on our own reptilian brain. Exactly. Because we can feel that evolutionary response to fight or fly or flee when we're faced with any kind of perceived threat, especially if our nervous system or our brain, our worry is on fire, because that helps provide that particular focus. So I would like to put up the slide on improv very briefly, because I'd like to wish you all, in all of your negotiations coming up, to remember some of these fundamental ground rules in improv, which are easier said than done if we don't do our grounding and our anchoring. So, for example, how can we listen? How can we let go of looking good or being right? How can we always be assuming the right intention of others. And a lot of these things are possible only when we can be grounded. So Briana and I hope to stay in touch with all of you. Briana, want to say a little bit about what you have to offer?
I have a business called Your Beautiful Balance, and my company does mindful solutions for a beautifully balanced life. We believe that when you are balanced, and to get in balance, meditation is core. And then when you start growing, other things start happening for you. So you need some more anchoring and support. And I offer products, Chaos to Clarity, the monthly minis, the 12-week, so that you can get into a groove to find your beautiful balance. The opportunity to meditate is wonderful, but it's really to discover more about yourself and the way you what you think works in the world. So that's why it's Your Beautiful Balance. I just am the conduit that really helps you find out what your dream and what's your highest and best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll be all reaching out to all of you after this as well. And all of you know that I have the webpage on Clairvoyant Leadership, and that I'm very interested in having you visit the microlearning curriculum page. And also, if any of you are interested in our local Arizona improv group, it's taking place on Zoom. We have a meeting coming up on the 9th of March. And the very last live session that we're going to do is live with Karen and Sarah. And the Eventbrite is going to be sent out probably in the next day or so. So save the date for March 24th. That is a Wednesday. And we'll meet at 9 o'clock Mountain Time. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Have a fabulous week and month. And thank you again, Shamshad, for keeping us moving ahead in the production room. And Briana, any last thoughts?
I hope you have a beautifully balanced day. This was a great workshop. Karen is amazing. And it's been wonderful to be of service to everybody here. And again, thank you, Shamshad, for your amazing technical work.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.